Sure.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yep, that seems to be working as expected. Um, Thank you all for being around. It was a good morning, and it will be hopefully even more informative afternoon. We have so after lunch we'll be talking about FOSS in the Indian BFSI sector. BFSI, for those of you who haven't accumulated enough acronyms in your life yet, BFSI is banking and financial services industry. And Dr. Surya Prakash Surya Prakash Mishra, who's one of the authors of the study, he'll be moderating the panel discussion, and we have Sushil from Pocket ATM, Shubham Mishra from Remiges, and Vishnu from Zerodha. All three organizations which participated in the study, by the way. We sadly don't have Sairi. She's not able to join us because she's a little sick. But yes, Dr. Surya Prakash, please take it away.
Thank you. So, I hope this is audible. Yes. Okay. So, we have three over here, Sushil, Shubham, and Vishnu. So, I think we will directly just start. This is the impact of FOSS on BFSI sector. This sector, if you look at it over the past 20 years, it has kind of, grown a lot, and there's been a lot of dynamic things kind of happening. In terms of market cap, it has gone up, say, about over 50 times since 2005. So what I want to the way we want to go ahead is, I'll just, start from you. How do you or your firm contributes to the economic, functioning? That way, I think I'll take everyone's opinion. And then, how do you see FOSS's role over here? Okay? Since this is on the financial sector, and specifically the BFSI is the backbone of the financial sector. And there is a lot of ease being kind of, done by your concerns. And since all of three, were also a part of the study, I think we will just, there'll be more insight. So.
Hi everyone. This is my second startup actually. That the label that is the seed, it's not.
Hold it closer.
Okay. Am I audible now?
Perfect.
Okay, clear. So the tag what you're seeing on my label CTO is actually I'm an accidental CTO. I have learned my ways throughout my journey actually. So just to quickly tell you about myself that this is my second startup. Initially, I've started my first company in 2012, which was a SaaS solution for F&B, prop tech, and HR tech. I had 1,000 plus clients in India who were using my platform. So that's when, being a founder and not being raised any money, I did not have any option but to learn technology on myself and have a tech company there. But this is my second company, which with a thought, we started this company that why don't we bring cash withdrawal on UPI, where we can have an application, Uber-like application, where the convenience of cash withdrawal becomes very easy on UPI itself. So that's what we wanted to do, because the cash usage in India has been increasing since 2014 till now, along with the UPI transaction as well. So an application that can tell you where to go and withdraw cash. It could be from your nearby Kirana stores or mom and pop stores. That's what we have built, and we have launched it in the Mumbai area itself. We are seeing a good transaction over there, and people getting used to it very often, because there are people who want to withdraw cash in a minimum quantum, but for many times in a month. So that's where we are seeing it. So monetary, sir, what we wanted to see that how can cash come on UPI platform and involve with the digital economy, because it's a parallel economy, it has to stay. बॉम्बे में हमारा एक सेइंग है कि ओला उबर आने से काली पीली बनने हुई है, तो that's the same concept we followed, because the cash printing has obviously increased in last 10 years. So this might, if we scale, if we want to be whatever we're dreaming of, the scale, if it happens, then obviously this will have one advantage of not printing the cash at this volume that is happening in India today. So that's the one thing that we wanted to get in place. But that's the primary motive for us to start with. But yes, that's the monetary gain for India. And FOSS, definitely I'll come on to that, but that's the second question.
Yeah, we'll just come back.
Okay.
So this has definitely increased the inclusivity in terms of financial inclusion, and which is kind of great for the economy. So I think it is helping in the economic activity. So Shubham, I think a lot of your clients, they will be using this thing FOSS, right? So how do you see their contribution in terms of economic activities?
So our clients are some of the largest financial institutions in India. I am not qualified even to talk about their contribution to the Indian economy. They are the Indian economy in some sense. So the stock exchanges, the securities depositories are our clients, among others. We have at different points in time served 6 out of the country's top 10 broking houses. And no, Zerodha is not one of them. They were born afterwards. And they are superb in tech also. They are inspirations in the security space, in the usage of tech. So yeah, our clients are pretty much the foundation on which the Indian economy runs outside the RBI. So if there is anything more you want.
I think we'll come back in some time. Vishnu.
Yeah, hi. I've been an engineer at Zerodha for the last 10 years. So what Zerodha did different from others is that until 2010, there were all the banks. They were known as the largest, large stockbrokers, and they used to charge a fixed percentage of your trade. So let's say you trade 1 crore rupees, you will pay X percentage of that 1 crore as your brokerage fees. What we changed about that is we set an upper limit. We set 20 rupees or 0.01 percentage, whichever is the highest, that will be your brokerage for regardless of the volume of your trade. Like whether it is 100 rupees or 1 crore rupees, the brokerage remains the same. So we were labeled as the discount brokers back in 2010. All the big banks laughed at us. But I think 2015 to 18 is when we 2013 to 18 is when we started the technology team in our company. We are a fairly small team. Even now we have only 35 engineers. We have been building, all the engineers are actually sort of like people with hacking mentality. They were all self-taught. And we have in our DNA and philosophy that we'll be using FOSS for building anything. So since 2013 onwards, we've been building things in FOSS. Yeah. And yeah, so basically because of the discount brokerage, we were able to penetrate to a market that was never looked up to as a cool industry. Now everyone looks at stock brokerage as a cool thing.
Okay. So now if we come to FOSS, it has evolved over time, and I think you guys were born pretty late. But nevertheless, if I were to just put it this way, how does it help you, in your functioning?
So when it comes to a startup, right? So we always want to keep our technology very light. We want to use tools and features and products that are actually not that costly for us because we run a very small budget, right? But the only scalable method what we found in last 3 years is the logics we have built in Pocket ATM to have a right combination of merchants and customers and have a right logic. We have developed around 198 logics, and that was only possible because we have used FOSS as our complete ecosystem. We have not even spent a penny on any perpetual license or any non-FOSS products. So that's something which was helped. But we have evolved because we have to keep pivoting and keep scrolling out. If our first logic fails, you have to go on to second logic and third logic. The transition itself was very smooth and very easy for us, and we can do the same thing as Vishnu said rightly that we are able to manage this entire logic and everything and all the platforms with a very small team. We do not have to keep hiring somebody who is expert on perpetuity, but team is evolving. The team is multitasking. The DevOps guy is also sometimes engineering, someone who's coding or looking at a server level. This is something which we are liking it, and people want to know more. The team itself want to learn more on the FOSS side. So that's what first is the cost that is being in our control, and second is the scalability. That's not an issue in the FOSS. That's something we feel very good, and we never seen a drawback of using FOSS. But then the adoption, right? Every time we hire a new member, we need to see that he is in the proper FOSS ecosystem and he understands the method of implementation. That's the only thing. But we kind of, that helps small medium enterprises and the startups to actually build products with the vision they have with no cost actually. That's what I see.
So I was just going to say about the cost. So that definitely would have an impact on the cost, and there'll be a lot of cost saving.
Absolutely.
And in econ, we say that a penny saved is a penny earned.
Startup actually.
So that I think will be the implication. But coming to Shivam. Sorry. Coming to Shivam, you have over 3 decades of technology experience, right? So you have seen a lot of things happening. Now, if we were to just ask you to, give us a snapshot of before the FOSS and during the FOSS until now, and how has that impacted business, or how has it helped businesses kind of become better and better? So I think that would also have the implications of FOSS coming in as a positive.
Okay. The question is deceptively difficult, right? First, summarize 40 years of computer usage in brief and not let everybody fall asleep. Okay. So I learned programming in 1984 on machines which had only one kind of input device, that is a punch card reader. I'm not going to explain what that is because I might need to be embarrassed in front of you.
We know.
Thank you. So I have seen in my career, in the early days, I have seen the birth of a movement by a man called Richard Stallman. And the term FOSS wasn't invented. It was a newfangled term which was thrown into the mix by, I forget who the author was. The author of this fetch mail program, he invented that term, open source. And there was a big fight between the community which said free software is the correct term, and the other community which says no, free software gives the impression of free beer and not free speech. So open source software is really the more accurate term, and so on and so forth. So yeah, we saw the first free software programs that we were exposed to was GCC, which at that time meant GNU-CC and not the GNU compiler collection, which it does today, and Emacs. So, and then we discovered we are all using another piece of free software without any publicity because there is no Richard Stallman to tom-tom about it. And that free software is Xwindow. We were downloading the source code of Xwindow and compiling it, and then we realized this is also free software. So yeah, we've seen all that. And
You're talking about Eric S. Raymond.
sorry?
Eric Raymond.
Eric Raymond, the Cathedral and the Bazaar. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really grateful. My memory is not what it used to be.
No, I was right.
He has a phone.
So, no, thank you so much. So, sometime in the mid-90s, I was working on my master's degree was on porting a multiprocessor, or porting OSF1 to a multiprocessor architecture. When I was working on this, the operating system we were working on was OSF1. I don't know whether any of you heard of it. Open source foundations, derivative of Unix on a microkernel architecture. So at that time, we heard that there is this fellow in Europe, idiosyncratic fellow, not very friendly, who claims he's written a Unix kernel which is completely open source. So we of course said, this guy is dabbling, good for him. He doesn't know the complexity of Unix. And that became Linux. So Linus Torvalds was that fellow. And then we were using open source, which was more stable at that time. We were using OSF1, which was more stable at that time, not fully open source. And then we saw Linux. We used to use a distribution of Linux called SLS, the soft landing system. And the distribution of Linux came in 40 floppies. Floppies were sold. I will not explain what a floppy disk is. No, you can laugh at my age, but I will still not explain it.
But what one is
The small ones, 3.5 inch. 3.5 inch floppy disk, 1.44 MB, yeah, I think that's the capacity, 1.44 MB, 3.5 inch. They would be sold in boxes of 10, so you go and buy 4 boxes. And then you coax a friend to sit up all night in the lab. See, I'm talking about the academic environment, I was in IIT at the time. Sit in his lab and copy 40 floppies for you. I can't tell you how slow it is. Whole night, and you have to feed your friend lots of cups of tea to keep his motivation up. Then you come out with a prized collection of 40 floppies and you pray none of those floppies give you a disk read error when you try to install.
CRC errors.
Yes sir, CRC errors, yes sir. And so you asked for this, right? I'm now telling you stories. I will try to keep it as short as possible.
I think we enjoyed it.
And there is one panelist less, so I'm grabbing her time. So the company I head, today it has some between 250 and 300 people. By Indian software services standards, it's still a very small company. But in those days, it was, in the early 90s, it was 4 people, 6 people, 8 people. So we have been the instrument to back the first project by 2 of the biggest financial institutions of India, I will not name them, to back the implementation of their first projects on Linux. Because at that time, if they were not using proprietary RISC hardware, they were using Windows NT on Intel. There was no third choice. What? Open source. So we backed them. We said, you trust us, don't have to trust Linux. We are going to be here, even necessary, 24/7, but we will demonstrate to you that this system won't go down. So we implemented for 2 organizations their first mission critical applications on open source, which was actually when they would get phone calls to the MD if that system went down. It was that mission critical for them. 1 hour downtime was not acceptable. And for one of these organizations, this system was internet facing. So it was the first internet facing browser based application, first application on an open source platform for this organization. I will not name it. So this was 1999, and one of the largest software services companies was also their vendor. We were also their vendor. They gave us this project because they thought we could move faster, which has always been proved correct. But they gave us 4 months, we did it in 2.5 because the project was not difficult. And because we knew how to do things simply, as in this was not about open source. We just knew that you don't need a relational database backing each and every application. Whereas if you talk to the big guys, they can't think outside a relational database. So we did it. So that was, we were witness to and party to the slow and reluctant adoption of open source in the BFSI sector in India. We have learned many things about the culture of IT departments of BFSI in the process. One of the things we have learned, and we took a long time to learn it, is that superior technology always comes second. First comes risk aversion. What is safer is far more important than what is better technically. And if I was the CTO of a large financial services organization, I would think exactly the same way. I would know which side my bread is buttered on. And I would always look for good technology, but look for it second. So this is the uphill challenge which open source fights even today. And well, there's nothing new in this. We understand this. It just took us a very long time to understand. So this was, in short, the story. Today, every organization has Linux servers. Even if they don't have many other things in open source, they at least have Linux servers. So we are building one system today. It's the largest project we have done. Our company is building that system today. The project has almost come to a closure. We are doing trial runs with real data, real transactions right now. The project has, of course, overshot its timelines, as always. The specs have all been unclear, again, as always. And data has been dirty, again, as always. So the stack is Kubernetes, Go for the server-side code, Angular for the front-end code, Flutter for the mobile application, Postgres for the database, and what else? Apache API 6 as the API gateway, Kiklo as the IAM system, and we are deeply embedding Prometheus into the system for real-time observability, not for infrastructure, but also for business application data. How many orders of a particular type have come in the last 1 minute should also show up in Prometheus dashboards. So Prometheus and Grafana. What I'm trying to tell you is open source has come a very long way, and it is now deeply embedded in BFSI. And more CTOs are comfortable with it, but there are some caveats. And of course, they are risk averse, and I understand their point of view. I was very uncharitable 15 years ago. Now I've grown older, I understand. And also they have, when we have met halfway, they have also moved along. So that is where FOSS is. I'll stop with one little story. And this is a very important insight for me. It was a disturbing event for me. I went to a HasGeek conference in Bangalore, maybe 4 years ago, in the audience. 2 days, excellent techies from all over the place, talking about, I think, databases and DevOps. I don't remember the exact thing. It was not application, and definitely it was not AI. It was all other interesting and valuable stuff like DevOps and databases and so on. And there were speakers from India and outside India, many of them of Indian origin, who had come to speak. All their talks were superb. I was really lapping it up. There were like 200 people in the audience. One speaker said, how many of you use Windows in your production systems where you work? I looked around, 200 people, not one hand went up. Not one hand went up. It still is a blow to me when I saw it. That was first observation. Second observation, over coffee and food, all the conversations were tech. Interested tech people, talking animatedly about tech. Third observation, I did not see a single delegate from any of the software services giants of our country. These are the 3 observations which you put together and you make your own conclusions about the ecosystem. So this is what I see. I mean, okay, this event was not a BFSI event, but it was a very telling statement about where production-ready, mission-critical systems are going today. There is only one hardware platform left today until ARM comes up really big time, and that is Intel. And on Intel, there are only 2 OSs, and one of these OSs had no representation in a room of 200 highly technical delegates. So this is, I think, my last comment about where OSS has come.
Same question?
I mean, how does it help you, and has it improved your functioning?
Okay. So 2013 to 15, when we started the technology arm of Zerodha, all of us were programmers. All of us were just love coding for the love of it, not really looking at stock brokerage as a financial firm or anything. None of us still know to trade, by the way. That is a disclaimer. Even though 10 years I've been there, I still don't know how to trade. But we know how to program the software. So all of us joined the company for the love of programming. So 2016-17 is when it hit us, okay, we are building the company in an unconventional way, using open source softwares, and our name started coming out more in the media and everywhere, and our scale also started hitting a mark where people are starting to notice us, like the big firms and everything. So we started talking, so that is when the startup boom sort of happened in Bangalore. So we started talking to a bunch of peers also, who got VC funding. VC money was flooding in. We were also offered quite a lot, but of course we didn't take it. So the peers from top, top startup, whatever you can name, they would have had an interaction with our team once. So what we noticed is that all of them were having a mentality of build fast, ship fast, those kind of mentality. And for that matter, many of them were going with some or the other SaaS model or proprietary softwares and things like that. And that is like a common thing across all of these orgs. And Fast forward another couple of more years when the startup funding has died down, people started looking for cost cutting. That's when these same folks came back and asking us like, how do we migrate from this to where what you guys are doing? Maybe from Oracle to Postgres or some proprietary ERP solution to Kraken that we use in our office. One fellow like stood out, like it's not even a big startup, but their yearly bill for ERP alone was $2 million. At that time, it was like a huge amount. Like, and then we looked at it, and we are like 10x in their scale. So how much we would be saving at that point? We were thinking. So that's when we realized, okay, this is not quantifiable because the thing that we are doing is so unconventional and haven't seen anywhere in any other peer companies. Like for example, the support portal where the customers create tickets. So we use something called OS Ticket, which is probably some 20-year-old project, but it's been like built and like modified. The code base is really bad, but we understand it and we have customized it to a level that it is so flexible right now. Our entire 1,000 employees are using OS Ticket for ticket management. Now we compare that price with something like Freshdesk or something. That's easily a yearly $2 million savings for us. So, but in our internally, the system that is running, the infra cost is probably somewhere around $1,500 maybe, or $2,000. That's about it. So that's the cost difference that we saved by migrating, like not migrating, it's never migration. It was just a common sense approach for us. Like we were programmers, we knew that open source is the way. And then when we started seeing other peers all stuck with logged into these proprietary software, that's when we realized, okay, we've done something different. Another thing that we did was migrated our entire office to Linux. We don't have Windows users. The only people who use Windows in our company is people who some of the tools that are given by exchanges or depositories require Windows, unfortunately, that we are not able to control it. So for them, we have Windows licenses. Otherwise, if you look at that, that is around $200 saved annually per employee for Windows license. Because all the tools are web-based. You don't need Windows. These are not EXEs. And Linux in itself comes with its own level of security as well. So I mean, I can't have a story like Sir was mentioning here, because he has seen the generations, like he has seen how it became from X to Y to Z, wherever it is right now. For us, we learned the way developing open source software. So what we saw is that there is a different set of people in the industry who's not following that, and then there is a different set of people like us who's following in a different manner. So that is when the whole supporting FOSS globally and all those ideas came up, like FOSS United Foundation, the FOSS fund that we are running, all those things came up because we realized that there is no sufficient support available for the FOSS ecosystem. I think OpenSSL is one of the biggest examples of lack of funding. I mean, so OpenSSL is the piece of software, it's a library that is powering majority of the internet, the security aspects, the transport layer security and all those things. They lack funding. And that is mind-blowing. That is like, we could not believe that is happening. Like every company in the world is using OpenSSL in one way or the other, but nobody was supporting. So all this conversation happened in 2019, 20, that time just before COVID. And that's when we, decided, okay, we need to speak out more and contribute more.
Okay, thanks. So, see, when I look at FOSS from an economics perspective, to me, it has features of something known as public bad as well as public good. When I say public bad, some time ago we were talking about Indians being, more of consumers than contributors. So if I were to loosely connect it, it's like kind of free riding to some extent. So that is a feature of the public bad stuff. But more so, I think it has a feature of the public good, wherein if not enough support is provided by the authorities of the government or whatever, it will never be enough done. I mean, from the regulator's perspective or from the government's perspective, there need to be more coming forth and supporting the firms or companies which are kind of going into this. Okay. What you talked about, the costs and benefits, the quantification, that is a very important thing. Choosing, I mean, if you want to choose, if you want to go ahead with something or not go ahead with something. But the complication is, as I think we all said some time ago, that you might be able to have an idea about the cost saving, but the numbers basically come from two things, right? If you think about profits, One angle is the cost saving, the other one is the revenue. Now it is so complicated that if you think about cost saving as well, there are multiple levels, and not all levels are kind of quantifiable. Same thing in terms of revenues. I mean, where are you kind of creating and how much, right? So I was going to come to that numbers, but I would just say that these numbers that we're talking about, these are always understated because of the unquantifiability of the thing that we are talking about. Going ahead, I'll just think about it this way, that the challenges that you may have faced and the biggest positives that you may have faced, because I think all of us are advocating FOSS over here. So we would advocate if and only if the net benefits are positive, right? Which means benefits have to be more than the challenges, at least perceived that way. So I would invite for what are your biggest advantages that you have seen in your experiences, and the biggest challenges, maybe 2 or something like that each. I think that will give us a good idea as to how to go ahead. And then I think the last leg would be, I think let us go to the last leg, then we'll come to that.
So, so challenge, like, see, it's a benefit. I'll talk about the benefit first. The benefit is obviously, we have explained in different ways, which was explained. The output is,
Hold it closer.
the output is quite good. So once you scale, we start seeing the benefit. But what happens is when you start from scratch, right? When you start linking up those, set up the server, set up the entire environment, right? That's when you might want somebody to come and help you, or probably give you a hand saying that this is how this needs to be done. These are the tools, these are the features you need to deploy in certain ways. So that help and hand is not immediate. You have to go and find in the market, either to the channels or associations who can come and give you this kind of understanding that this is how it needs to be done, right? That is a challenge to start with. Once you are in the game, you are in the flow, you continue to research that what is the next thing I have to do, what is the next integration I have to do in the FOSS, and how I have to make an ecosystem. That's when you start seeing the benefit. The challenges will eventually come down once you start scaling and continuously using the FOSS. So I have one case, like I'm talking to one of my friends, the founder, and into PropTech in Bangalore itself, but he has started with the, again, for all open source platforms. He raised funds, approx good money, but then he couldn't scale the software enough to show it to the investors in a year or so. Then he just changed the entire team, and he started implementing all the perpetual license and everything. So he felt that is more quicker for him at that point in time to prove somebody, that the product is scaling faster, and because he couldn't find enough help in the FOSS. So I think, but if you find the association is there are channels, but then you have to keep finding for somebody. So today we have around 19 channels we follow, wherever my team keep interacting, that this is the challenge we face, this is where we are stuck, this is the integration we are stuck into, how do we do that? They keep talking. It's a regular exercise they do, right? So that's what we have to do even to see the benefit. So that's a challenge I've faced in my this thing, but I'm not in that game anymore. I know how to solve the puzzle with the open source. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So some benefits that you see, and you kind of advise your clients to go for this, and any challenges that they have, and how do you take care of them?
Okay, so before I start, I'll point out one small flaw I'm seeing in our panel. If you look at the three of us, we are discussing open source in BFSI. None of us is a BFSI CTO. I'm not saying that what we are saying is invalid. I'm saying that that point of view is not coming through. Two of you are using technology in-house to build your own products and services, which is a fantastic use case. That is not BFSI. When you are in BFSI, but not the classic BFSI. And I am a service provider. My company does software projects for BFSI. I have my point of view, but my business interests are always slightly different from that of my clients, right? So, still, I will talk about my point of view and then the BFSI point of view. I am now standing proxy for the BFSI CTO. From my point of view, I have pitched open source in the early days, say 1999, when I was pitching to that financial institution. Why are you using NT, which needs to be, according to Microsoft, it is recommended that you reboot your server once a week. In those days, that was a recommended standard practice. Why don't you use Linux, where I can show you, the uptime command will tell you more than 365 days uptime. So it's staring you in the face and you still want to use NT for reasons best known to yourself. So in those days we used to pitch stability and incidentally low cost. I have understood two things since then. One, and I'm still talking from my point of view, my company's point of view. I have understood two things. One is low cost doesn't really matter much for the large BFSI organizations. My understanding of BFSI, and I could be wrong, is that in the banking sector and in the financial sector, there is no such thing as a small and profitable organization. The profits come from scale. I don't know if you can think of a business model where you'll be able to pick up a large percentage of the gross merchandise value as your income and therefore become highly profitable even on a small scale. You usually are doing it the other way around. Very tiny percentages from very large numbers of transactions. When you're dealing with tens of thousands of crores as like a starting point, 2 crores more or 2 crores less for some IT infrastructure doesn't seem that important. Even there, we have had BFSI CTOs tell us the license fees are killing us. Take us out of SQL Server into Postgres. Okay. But in general, this is a point of view I have begun to see. One BFSI CTO told us, look, we are talking about costs. We understand that we all need to look at costs, but I don't want to tell you the inventory of software licenses which are lying in my warehouse. How many dozens of crores of rupees we have spent on software which we have not been able to deploy. Because we don't have the skills or we don't have the time, or we tried and the pilot project failed. So money is flowing into proprietary software, and when you try to save 50 lakhs here and there, it may not be of great significance. Their priority is risk mitigation and highest availability and so on. So I understand that. The second thing I've understood over the last 10-15 years, this was taught to me by a CTO of one of my clients. He said, look at the total cost of ownership, and he gave me two products, RHEL versus Microsoft SQL Server. He said, over a 10-year period, my license fees or subscription fees for Microsoft SQL Server per server is lower than my license fees for RHEL Advanced Edition per server. Take it or leave it, I'll give you the maths. It was irrefutable. The maths was irrefutable. At that time, RHEL Advanced Server was, I think, charging about $1,800 a year. You do the math, you will yourself see what I'm talking about. So A, it's not necessarily the lowest cost being the highest priority, and B, open source is not necessarily the lowest cost in all situations. So we need to understand it case by case, and the clients I deal with are sharp. They know how to use a spreadsheet, they can do the math, and they know these things. So today it is a question of better technology in some cases, and in other cases it's a question of simply extremely high price difference. So not the average price difference, but extremely high price difference. So at the level of operating system distributions, I'm not sure the price difference is that significant. I'm not sure Microsoft is much more, that's the only game in town, Microsoft proprietary operating system. I'm not sure Microsoft Server is that much more expensive than RHEL. I mean, other things would be cheaper, but my CTO clients will not use not commercially supported Linux distributions. So they look at quality, they look at stability, and they look at, only some cases cost becomes important when cost is exorbitantly different. So these are the reasons why they look at open source. Those are the advantages they get from open source. I wanted to also add one more dimension to this, to open source or not to open source question. I will draw an analogy to language. The thought patterns we have are governed by the words in the language we use. I hope I don't need to explain this. The Maasai have 35 words for the color of a cow. So they can identify those differences in the color of the cattle they have. If I don't have 35 words, I will all call them gray or brown or whatever, dirty brown or dark brown or black. So when you step out of the world of proprietary software into the world of open source, suddenly the lexicon becomes much bigger. I'll give you an example. I am not aware of any easy proprietary software which replaces Redis. Do you have Redis in your toolkit or not? Everybody that I know in the BFSI space, in the enterprise IT space, uses Redis. I'm not seeing, I don't know, I could be ignorant, I'm not seeing an established proprietary closed source product which truly competes against Redis. So Redis has wiped it out, in some sense. In the same way, Elasticsearch, I'm not seeing a Lucene Solar Elasticsearch. I'm not sure that there is an exact equivalent which is very popular. So there are closed source products which are competing against them, but these guys, of course, these guys have also offered closed source offerings because they understand the risk aversion of their clients. But the point is, these are open source. So when you get into the world of open source, this is one more reason to go open source. Your lexicon becomes bigger because you see design patterns which are offered to you by technology components which are pretty much only there in the open source world, or which are very popular only in the open source world. So then you expand the space of components from which you architect your solutions, and that's a wonderful reason to be in open source. I see people who are stuck with .NET and MS SQL Server as being very narrow in their architectural diversity. It may not be necessary. You may be able to point out closed source equivalents of every open source product we use. Doesn't take away from the fact that the closed source community doesn't know about them. They think in terms of what Oracle and Microsoft offers, and they stop at that. So I think I'm very lucky that we deal with open source. We push our clients to use open source today. So today, now I'm shifting to, the point of view of the BFSI CTO. So when the BFSI CTO sees these are the things he looks at. He looks at not necessarily cost, etc. He looks at these things. When you look at it from my point of view as a solution provider, it gives me flexibility. I'll tell you one example of flexibility it gives me. Very mundane. My client is beating his head against the wall because his transaction processing system is hitting limits, going down once a week because of overload. I say it is the obvious step now to do horizontal scale out, right? I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. He says, before you open your mouth, do you know the price of the license fee for one extra server? And then he says, are you aware of the fact that when I talk about one extra server, it is 4 extra servers? This is the reality of BFSI. Why 1:4? Because they have to have 2 data centers. Otherwise, SEBI and RBI will wipe them clean. And in each data center, they have to have mirror image of servers. So one logical database server has to be 4 physical database servers. 2 in DR, 2 in primary. So I sympathize with him. But now what would happen if this was not a proprietary database? I would have immediately told him, lagao 3 copies of your Postgres database. In 1 week, my engineer will set up replication. Divert all your queries to the read-only replicas. I'm not even talking about multi-master replication. Just read-only replication, which is non-controversial and much more robust. The job is done. You scale up like in a week, and all you pay is the fees for 2 of my engineers working 12 hours a day for a week. So this would be true if your first database was Postgres. So these are some of the things where I find tremendous impact because I can simply replicate. We are, fortunately or unfortunately, my clients are some of the largest in the world in terms of transaction volumes. Not largest in India. It so happens that the largest in India are the largest in the world today. And people in Singapore can't believe what we do in terms of volumes in the Indian stock exchanges. What they do in a year, we probably do in a week, etc. So when we are talking this kind of scalability, the flexibility to be able to take an overnight technical decision without a commercial impact and scale horizontally is a tremendous, how do I put it, relief. So as a solution provider, I feel that my clients' interests are best served if they are able to have this leeway which open source gives them. And there is purely a cost issue. Replicate it 5 times in a week's time. They'll give me hardware. The budgets are not constrained. Just replicate the software and you're done. So this is the mix of parts.
Okay, Vishnu, I'll just add one more dimension over here before we come to you.
Yeah.
So if you look at it from the regulator's perspective, there are three, right? Three regulators over here. And now over here, this thing becomes like a commons. And every common faces a tragedy, right? So that can be as a part of the challenge that I'm talking about. That do you see that challenge coming in as in too many regulators and obvious overlaps and all that? Apart from your advantage and disadvantage that we talk about, if you kind of see this thing as well coming up. And I think we can just, continue with that as to how do you see things going ahead and what do you recommend? So I think we can just, start from here and then come back this way. I think we'll just wrap it up.
Okay, so I think we are sort of lucky with SEBI in that sense. I've attended multiple consultation papers with SEBI in the last few years, and one common thing that I've noticed in every consultation is that they understand open source now very clearly. They know the capabilities, they know the pitfalls and the benefits and all of those things. Like for example, CrowdStrike, that incident that happened worldwide. Now that is like one of the biggest examples. Like 1 year before CrowdStrike happened, we advocated in SEBI saying that we should not so that time SEBI had a mandate saying that we need to have one of those worldwide accepted SIEM tool in your servers now, and we advocated against it, saying that this is a piece of software that will run in our core server, which we have no exposure to. It's a black box. We don't know what it does, and there's no source code available. And under no circumstances we will be installing it. We were very open about it, and they accepted it because the challenges that we posed, they agreed, and the data goes to US. They don't have data centers in India. 1 year later, the CrowdStrike incident happened. SEBI called us, and they acknowledged that your point of view is valid. Nobody knows what it does. I mean, it's unbelievable that a piece of SIEM software had a root level access to, cause a whole Windows system to reboot and all those things. So anyway, so from regulator perspective, we are lucky. I think sir may not be that lucky because RBI is very strict about a lot of things. Then benefits, I think it's obvious from our side, cost benefit is one thing, but more than that is flexibility. Like we have the flexibility to change things and not depend on any vendor. The lock-ins are not there. From the audit perspective, from compliance perspective, now it's much easier because earlier, I remember one of the auditors was asking, do you use any third-party monitoring tools or something like that? We said no, like Datadog and a bunch of things that people generally use. We said no, and we explained why we don't use it, and they were very understanding about it. They didn't ask, but one thing that they kept asking is that, so do you have a monitoring team in-house? So the problem is, one of the downside of this is self-hosting everything, using everything open source, that we need to have built expertise within the company, which we've been doing since the beginning of time. So we have a team that monitors, we have a team that deploys, we have a team who looks at everything, which generally other companies outsource to other companies. So that is one advantage we have, but the downside is that no, we can't expect every company to do this in this way, unfortunately. So I see a market opportunity as well. There can be service providers purely for open source, similar to service company, and I think that is still not tapped enough. I think it can go way long.
I was just going to ask that if you think about a wish list from the policy perspective, what is it that one stuff that you would say, I wish this happened?
I have one big one for that. Every company should acknowledge the use of open source. Every single company in the world. Because if you look at big companies like Microsoft, ironic that GitHub is owned by Microsoft, their contribution in terms of economics to the open source versus the net profit that they make is in decimals. Like it's ridiculous error. Yeah, it's like an out of error for them. So acknowledgement of use of FOSS and having a FOSS policy in every company, I think Rahul can add more context to it. Yeah. So we have a discussion ongoing about it. Pinky and Rahul can add more onto this. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we are out of time.
Oh. I was thinking about some one pointers, but I think we can quickly go for questions and maybe one question here, one here. So anybody this side? Okay.
Can I? I've already spoken, but a question is to this group. Thank you so much, great panel. I always knew a non-scientific panel will be less BS. Yeah, sorry, thanks, great, I'll stay back. Two things. One is this AI coding now, since it reads up, what's the pattern of ownership use of AI coded software? And second is, after hearing everybody, and I understand, especially small MSMEs can't really start using open, so the headache and pains are just too huge. I mean, as an NGO, we have used it from an ideological standpoint. I was there with the NGO for 20 years, I managed, but after these 2 years, I really found it difficult. Now, I think the model of service providers using this for the kind of things you, Shivam, were talking about, new modularities, new possibilities, having a business model is useful, and governments can help by giving a lot of business initially to these for their own thing. So this policy and the business model comes together, and that is the kind of thing somebody can use, because they are ready to pay somebody for the headache, because they are doing business. They don't want to, be the pain of software. Somebody has to do it for them. I mean, it's different from you who do it in-house very well, but most companies would want. So this service model of open source with good business models and some government support, I think may be a useful thing, but I would ask them to comment.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the service model is a very necessary model for open source. So I have a larger thought about this. The 20th century thinking about business models and general mental models about these things needs to change. The separation between product and service is artificial in today's world, I believe. Already it has been half demolished by SaaS services. I build a very cool open source software and then I offer it as a SaaS service. Is it a product or a service? And so on and so forth. So in general, the service model must go hand in hand with the product model. So open source products should be combined with services which are offered around the open source products. And this combined offering is the real value proposition, in my opinion. I have a feeling it's a very classical American mindset where I will build something and give it to the rest of the world and I will retain an arm's length distance with my customer. That is a very classic open source model. I have been told by some entrepreneurs that if you want to retain sanity and build a product business, you have to have that arm's length distance. Can't get involved too much with your customers. There is some, good sense in that. But I still believe that to deliver open source and value, you need to combine your software product with services so that the customer can see beyond your source code and get assurance from the service commitment and the contracts that you're signing with the customer, and thus overcome his hesitation about some relatively lesser known open source product and engage. And every time he engages, remember, he is not just giving you money for services, he's giving you a testimonial for your product. So that builds your product brand. So this combination, according to me, is an excellent combination, which has it starts off a virtuous cycle, and services are a very important point.
Thank you.
Yes, so I have a similar point was made was, so you are, Vishnu and Sushil are basically talking to organizations that have large or small in-house teams, right?
I am an org with a large in-house team. We don't talk to other orgs.
Yeah. So what I mean to say, by your org I mean Zerodha as a company. You have your own inbuilt guys who do the engineering and all the work, which is a sort of a model that lots of us want to talk about as the classical old school model where you have people building customized software and all of that. How does that really work out in the scaling? So how does it work out on the scaling aspect of it? How do you actually justify these expenses for possibly a business organization that's only looking to buy and sell shares and not really interested in the nitty-gritty?
So scaling, you mean in terms of the team or in terms of the product?
Team, product, everything. How do you justify the fact that we have something which we are building in ourselves and we are not really...
So I mean, so we
are basically a cost center, right?
Okay, I'll give you a perspective. So we started off with a couple of thousand users, live users. Organically grew. It was Python and Flask app in the beginning. Then we slowly migrated to a bit more robust in between tool, and then finally we ended up in Golang. So it's not that we didn't know about Golang back in the days. It's just that at that time we didn't have to scale that much. So it's an organic growth. We don't build for 1 million like traders back in 2015. We built that over the period of time. And talking about the team size, we haven't hired in tech in last few years. We are okay the way we are. That is because we follow certain common sense principles in programming also, like build efficiently, do not hesitate to rewrite the code if it's required. We do not build fast and ship fast. We take time. It's okay to not meet the deadline. So these are things that generally companies don't do. So that is how we scale.
Okay, apologies, we have run over time, so I think we'll have to end it over here. What I'd like to thank the panel, thank you Sushil, thank you Shivam, and thank you Vishnu.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Suryaprakash, and everyone for that panel. There's one small thing which I wanted to add, and Mr. Shubham alluded to this, and Vishnu also briefly mentioned this in the previous panel. Vinay, who's also from Zerodha, he highlighted this very clearly in a talk that he gave at Chennai FOSS, I think last year, where he said BFSI is a very heavily regulated industry, and all of a sudden, one fine day, RBI or SEBI is going to come out and put out a new thing and say you have to adhere to this new policy within 1 week, 2 weeks, or 4 weeks. And if there's a significant amount of reliance on an external service provider, you are at the whim and mercy of those people to be able to update their changes. Whereas when you own and run everything that you're doing, all of a sudden you're able to say, yeah, fine, okay, like you put out a new thing, I'm managing all of these things by myself, I'll easily be able to do data localization or any of those sorts of things. But yeah, moving on, the next panel before our break is on FOSS in the software and IT services industry. Professor Mr. Rahul is the moderator for the session. I kept thinking of Professor Rahul there, but I only recently got to know that Professor Rahul is now retired from IIM Bombay. While at IIM Bombay, he was. Sorry.
Once a professor, always a professor.
Yeah, he's done pioneering work on trying to study and write about the open source ecosystem in the country and the value of it. His reports from 2009 and 2015 have already been mentioned in the panel discussions and sessions before. So yeah, without further ado, Professor Rahul, please go ahead.
Come, please. One mic is on.
Is it on? Yes. It's on? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, great pleasure to be here and thank you for inviting me. I am retired, so that takes my age.
No, it doesn't.
It's 65 for us employees. So I think the challenge for our panel is to meet the strategic objective and overcome it as mentioned by Parvinder. So I'll do a brief introduction to our panelists and then we'll take it from there. I'll begin with Vineet, who's right next to me. He's the co-founder and director at Axon Technologies, India's first open source integration company with over 2 decades of experience in digital transformation. Vineet has helped leading insurers, financial services, and public sector organizations adopt scalable, low-code platforms powered by FOSS. Vineet brings a practical, ground-up perspective on how open source can power real business and societal outcomes. He believes open source is not just about cost, it's about innovation, control, flexibility, and speed. At InfoAxon, he drives strategy and innovation and focuses on helping organizations go digital faster through low-code platform-first, FOSS-led approaches. Vineet. Akhila Somanath is the co-founder and chief operating officer at Tech for Good community. This is an organization founded in 2018 with a mission to strengthen the tech capabilities of Indian non-profits. Alongside her two co-founders, Akhila set out to bridge the glaring technology gaps within the social sector, especially for organizations with little to no tech capacity. As a development sector practitioner rather than a trained technologist, she was among the first beneficiaries of the very mission she championed. Over the years, Tech for Good community has worked with more than 2,000 non-profits across India, urban and rural, large and grassroots. Akhila has spent time on the ground in remote areas, collaborating directly with changemakers and communities using free and open source software to address systemic challenges through technology. Backed by partners such as Tata Trusts, Brain Matter Foundation, Rohini Nilankari Philanthropies, Samagata Foundation and others, Akhila leads efforts in building tech capacity, developing operational systems and running open source adoption programs tailored for the social sector. Today, she and her team are building a FOSS suite of non-profit efficiency tools designed for ease of use by people with little or no tech background. Her goal to drive open source adoption across India's 3.3 million non-profits so that change makers can focus on impact without being burdened by infrastructure. Akita. And then we have Kishore. Kishore Bhargava is a highly experienced technology consultant with over 40 years of expertise in network architecture, security, unified messaging, project management, and IT planning and strategy. As an early adopter of technology, Kishore has a deep understanding of the latest gadgets and trends in the industry. He has been an active member in several open source communities in India and has contributed to various technology magazines and media outlets. Away from the tech world, Kishore is a wildlife enthusiast and enjoys capturing the beauty of animals and birds through photography. He is also a self-proclaimed geek, lifelong geek, and aspiring coffee connoisseur based in Gurgaon, Haryana, India. Welcome, Kishore. So, let me kick off this panel with asking all three of the panelists to say a little bit about their journey and how FOSS has integrated into it. I should mention that this panel is interesting. Kishore is in some ways an organizer who's done a lot of organizing around FOSS. Akhila is one who takes FOSS to a larger community, and Vineet has been building FOSS products. So it's a very diverse and very interesting panel. Over to you guys. We'll start with Kishore.
Sure. So as Shivam talked about SLS, I must tell you, my journey began with SLS. September of 91 is when August of 91 is when the announcement came as an email. September is when the first kernel came out. And then 92 is when there was actually SLS available. And you're right, it was 40 floppies. And I think we had people at every ERNet center downloading. So I was not lucky to be in a lab, but I was lucky to have hacked into ERNet. So, and with the blessings of the then director. So we downloaded these 40 floppies, and we actually all got together with our collection of 40s, because when you install, that's when you encounter these world famous CRC errors. One floppy, the 39th will suddenly give you an error and the entire process has to start all over again. But we finally all got our servers up and running. And I will admit that after having installed it, I stared at that server for 2 days and I did not know what to do with it. And then I wiped it out. So that was the end of my journey as far as SLS was concerned. However, I revisited when I got the first version of Slackware. And I really enjoyed using that. That was in '94. And in '95, I was bold enough to tell PC Quest that with these magazines that you publish, you give out a CD. Why don't you give out this CD of Slackware with it? And they did. And it was a very interesting response from our 35,000 readers at that time. I don't think we got any love. Everybody sent us hate, saying like, what is this that you have put out on a CD? What are we supposed to do with it? And I think that is a mistake that we realized, that we put the CD in everyone's hand, but we didn't tell them what it was and how to use it. So, that happened in September of that year. I think it was '96. But '97 March is when PC Quest decided that every March they will do a Linux issue. And I think that March Linux issue is something that really kicked off the Indian FOSS community. At Bangalore, there was an event, it's held on the 1st of November, it's Karnataka Day, it's called IT.com. It's the first time that we convinced the IT.com committee to have a Linux pavilion.
99.
No, it was '97.
97.
And at that time, at the end of that event, the Linux pavilion was called the jewel in the crown of that event. And the Linux pavilion, I must tell you, had a few companies like Red Hat and Sun Microsystems and a couple of others. But the bulk of that space was occupied by what we used to call at that time ILUG, which is India Linux User Group. And it was the chapters from all across the country. We were all there as one community, and we were showcasing what open source can do. That's what the kickoff point was. There you go.
Thank you. Super honored to be on this panel, first of all. All right, so our journey with open source software purely started because of frustration of what was available in the proprietary world. The ground realities of how difficult, how expensive it is for nonprofits and change makers across the country to adopt a software just to collect data on the ground was impossible. We couldn't fathom why it was so expensive. It was so expensive and can't customize, you can't do anything, what's given is given. So our entire journey has been one of frustration and one that didn't give us any options. So I've been in the sector for quite some time, but we started Tech for Good community just to, one, build capabilities in nonprofits to be able to access technology and successfully use it, adopt it, and sustainably use it, making sure that they're able to increase their on-ground impact. I still remember my first encounter with FOSS, which was Kobo Toolbox, which is a fairly simple data collection software. Was stationed in Raichur. This was this really rural part of Karnataka. Stationed in Raichur, was working with an organization to test if an organization with absolutely shoestring budgets, no tech capacity, can adopt an open source software seamlessly in their own language, then what is stopping bigger or medium-sized urban nonprofits across India, which is 3.3 million by the way, to use technology to be able to create that on-ground impact. I still remember, and I stand by this word till today, saying that tech is never the solution. Sometimes it's processes and sometimes it's people. People are the hardest, right? You're breaking anti-behavioral patterns with people to use technology, and especially we come from a sector where our data articulation has problem because we have it all in silos. Forget about having large-scale ERPs or having end-to-end systems to manage all of your data. Here we have to talk about why tech first and then why open source. So understanding or helping an organization understand the importance of open source happened through this journey of helping one rural non-profit in Raichur to use a software which is Kobo Toolbox to collect their data. And this still fresh in my memory that we taught them how to configure the software, simple, just basic add skip logic to collect they wanted to geotag locations, great. You want to collect pictures, great. You want to collect videos, great. You want to create evidence. This is an organization which has existed for about 20 years, and they lost 10,000 member data to a flood. And they have absolutely no work to show of the kind of impact that they've done for 20 years. And this is all because their data was in the form of paper. So now the first step is to say, okay, digitize. Then what do you use to digitize? With Kobo Toolbox, we were able to help them say, okay, why don't you go to the field, collect the data, and come back. They went to the field, I was waiting, came back, said eyes are hurting, can't use the phone. So that is a behavioral pattern. Now that's why I keep saying that tech processes people, people is the hardest. So this journey of helping organizations right from the grassroots level to up until large-scale organizations with like 500 crore budgets, which by the way is very common, has been our core focus, where we've been building capacity to use open source software, adopt it, sustainably use it. At the same time, we realize that what exists today, these enterprise software that you get, is built for large-scale enterprises and not suited for non-profit workflows. And that's why we said we wouldn't reinvent the wheel, but we will create what is necessary, not sort of build unless it's absolutely necessary, only configure till then, but then now we've come to a point where we've been able to build our own systems, and that's been the journey so far. It's been quite interesting, quite frustrating, but also a lot of fun.
Hi, just to remind, I'm Vineet from InfoExon. So our journey into FOSS has been, I would say, a series of incidents and pivots which has happened over a period of time. We never went out and seek FOSS, but somehow FOSS found its way to reach out to us. So we started way back in 2001 as any four friends started a company. We were there in UK. We were just trying to find our focus, what to do at that time. Then we realized that we are in meeting with the Office of Deputy Prime Minister UK office, where they were initiating some open source projects which were called Pathfinder projects. So there they were launching citizen services online and realized that it is very difficult to do it without much cost. And they tried doing it with the proprietary software, but then when they launched few services as pilot, they put some charge onto the citizen to avail that service. And as you know, people in societies like UK and all, they revolted and they simply said we will not pay a dime to use services which the government should be giving to us. So they went back to the drawing board and then they decided to do something about it and decided to launch some open source Pathfinder project. So one of the project was Applause, which was called Accessible and Personalized Local Authority Website. At the time there was no content management system for government to actually create a website and ingrain some of the standards which the government has in terms of data exchange and interoperability. So very early in our career, we got a chance to be on the other side of the open source, which is acting as a committer to an open source project along with Red Hat. Red Hat donated one of the very early software called Ars Digita, which was a very early CMS. I don't know how many of you would know, but they donated that software as for that project. And then we started building on top of it. That helped us realize that open source is the way the software is going to be built and distributed in times to come. And then we realized very naively that, look, there's not much cost attached to it. You have the source code. What else world would need? So this is going to be the success anyway. So, but then we realized when we started selling or reaching out to companies that something of less cost, something which is open, which is free, would not be something which is actually a desirable thing from corporates. Still, we face this problem because when we work with large insurance BFSI companies, doing a contracting is a hell of a job. Because we have to answer, explain things like indemnity, intellectual property, how much of liability we would have, how much of liability they would have. So all those questions we still grapple with. But I think this is evolving. People are understanding that FOSS in itself brings so many advantages that they have to invest their time into it, understand the licensing side of things, the contracting side of things, and how much of effort it requires to actually, not only use the software, but also contribute it back so that it becomes something more better and larger than what it was originally. So this is how we started, and I remember we were approached by one of the largest bank. They were planning to create an open source based enterprise architecture where they wanted to migrate all their non-core banking application onto this open source architecture. And this is where we started working with a lot of corporates. But I must say, before just I hand it over to you, that still we find that open source projects become very technical projects. Many times the discussion with the CTOs and the CIOs and the board members are generally not happening on the business implication and the business benefit they could get out of it, but more in terms of what is the technical challenges you are facing. So I think this is what as a community we are still in the pursuit of solving them.
Excellent. Thank you. Let me pose a question which is somewhat futuristic, and I'll put it this way. I think open source software is a huge lever of innovation. And by that I mean that it enables you to do things your own way, to become makers, and the examples have come. Today, India is a very big economy, we are told. We are third largest, and we are going to become even bigger. And I understand IT will play a big role in this. What, in your view, from your own perspectives, do you think will be the role of open source in all this, keeping in mind all that is happening in the environment? So, can we begin with?
Yeah, we can begin with Vineet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of factors which would have an influence on the questions that you have asked. One is what is in it for the people? People, I mean, in terms of people who are going to use it, like the corporates or the large enterprise. As it was being discussed in the last panel, that it doesn't matter to people whether it is open source, whether it is closed source, as long as it is solving their business problems and business needs. And so it is for us who are actually, how do we articulate this, and how do we articulate the business benefits out of it? And that would actually help in determining how far it will go and what will be its future. So many times we just keep on harping on something which is given. So yes, you have control over it. Yes, it is flexible. You can do a lot many things, but that is given. But how do you make it very relevant to the business? Do you have the capability? Have you really created something which is of value to your customers? This is going to drive the open source growth. Not just because it is open source. So I think that would be one of the key factors.
Thanks, Sunil. All right, so I think with respect to innovation, this is a very sector-specific perspective that I'm going to give. Very, very limited to social impact. All right. So by far, technology, proprietary legacy tech has failed us because it hasn't kept the user at the center of the build. This innovation for us means user-centric tech, and that's possible with open source. And here, we're not looking at building systems, we are building ecosystems. That we are building tech with alongside the community, that all of us can replicate, can form, can be able to use it according to our own use cases. And the whole concept of being able to build tech that would at least, like using the 80-20 principle, that's what we always say, that use the 80-20 principle, 80% of the workload right, remaining 20% is up to you to customers. Getting to that point is a community effort, and that community effort drives that innovation. So it's super pivotal for us, and the last few years have been in fact, it's been very, very refreshing to see that a lot more projects like this are coming out of our space, where we are not the beneficiaries of builds that have happened, but we are ourselves the innovators that are contributing to builds now. So that is the paradigm shift that we've seen, and that's what innovation means in our space.
So I hate to bring the term sovereign tech, but I think that is something that we are talking about. But if you look at it, I'd say there's a plus side and there's a minus side. I don't know how many of you have heard about FOSS, Bharat Operating Software System. So, there have been a lot of projects where we can benefit. I don't know, BOSS didn't do very well, but I do know that, and in fact, Gora, who's in the crowd, can vouch for that. We went to Naval Intelligence and worked with them as a community, the Linux community of Delhi, worked with them to help them customize a kernel which was completely independent of, completely under their control. So it was that entire kernel was rewritten for the Navy, by the Navy, with just the community kind of helping them. And I think if the community were to start getting involved in projects like that, it's not easy because naval defense does not trust a guy in a t-shirt, especially a black t-shirt. It's not easy to get in there, but I think that's something that does need to be showcased so that more work of that nature can happen. One of the conversations that we've heard almost every panel mention is the fact about India being consumer and not being contributor. Rishabh brought up the point of Google Summer of Code. I do want to add a quick story here. When we started this conference called FOSS in Bangalore, 2 years after the conference ran, the head of Google HR, she came to us and she said, shame on you guys. For a country your size, you have zero participation in Google Summer of Code. And a country as small as Sri Lanka had, I think, 9 or 10 participants that particular year. And so, we actually had to shift our conference focus from, and that's just within 2 years. We're still trying to tell people what is FOSS, what can you do with it, and how can you benefit from it. But we had to change the focus from there to, okay, it's time to start contributing. And we took baby steps. We said, look, it doesn't matter where you contribute. Start with language, start with documentation, start with code janitor. Do the little things that will help you become a contributor. And it was surprising that 2 years later, the same lady came back to us and said that we've had the highest number of participants ever from any country from India at Google Summer of Code. So I think it's very clear that the flexibility of open source software that exists, agility. Shubham's example was very, very clear. The way you can scale up, scale down, do exactly what you want. And I mean, I hate to bring AI into the picture, but if you start looking at the open source AI models which exist, every single corporate wants to build their own AI in-house so that their data doesn't go out. And by law, it is actually a problem for them because they can't afford to have their data go out. So if you see all of these guys who, you upload a image and it says, okay, I might use this image for training the model. I might use this image for, making other images out of it. But the corporate world can't deal with that. And the interesting thing is that, amongst themselves, they impose that restriction on each other to say that, you can't use my data for anything. And if you're going to use it in AI, please tell me. So it cannot be without my consent. So, I think it's going to be a very, very interesting time going ahead because people won't have a choice.
Okay, speaking of which, this was my third and last question, so we'll go around, then we'll take some questions from the audience. We will start with you. Same thing. AI is, I noticed, has not been spoken about much since morning. But we can't ignore it. It's standing just outside. It's a big gorilla. Where do you think this is heading? I'm sure all of us have tried coding with AI, and it actually works very well, and it is doing quite amazing things. So, how does this play back into this innovation culture that I think we aspire for, that we want to have? Is it going to help us, impede us, or is it going to be a pretty dead gorilla doing nothing much?
Okay, so it works very well until it doesn't. One of the most common examples that is given about vibe coding, which is the most prevalent thing right now with AI, the fact that if you are not a coder and you are trying to generate code, you don't even know what code is being generated for you. So when you see an include library name which doesn't exist, and the whole program is then now based on a library that doesn't exist, you should be worried. So, but I think the right way to look at this is, at the moment, most AI models which are out there, they can write beautiful code, but don't expect a non-coder to be in charge of that. So I would say use it as your 24/7 research assistant whom you don't need to pay and who works really fast. And once the output comes from there, review it, review it, review it.
What was this?
Say the same thing? Yeah, you can say the same thing.
No, I would agree 100%. But I also feel like the sector which I come from is very premature. Like, what are we talking about AI? It is not standing outside for us, unfortunately. But I do agree that if contextualized and built within the sector with common data sets across different subsectors of the social impact space, there would be a use case definitely. Say, for example, in civic, so if you're talking about like civic issues across different cities, then there are tools that will give you information, but common data sets have to be filled for you to get accuracy. It's not possible yet because we still don't have our data in place. That's the whole problem. Coming back to lack of data articulation in silos, how are we talking about AI? So that is my take on this. Could be that the sector makes me think this way, but unfortunately, that's the case here.
Let me press her a little bit. She made a very interesting comment. It's not about building systems, but building ecosystems. I really like that. Do you think the AI is assisting with a lot of cognitive tasks? Okay, a lot of. Will it help with these kind of tasks, building the ecosystem?
Yeah, I also want to add to that because you can then answer both questions at the same time. It's interesting that the panel is questioning itself. But when you say it's not standing outside, I kind of disagree a little bit. Even in your sector, I work in your sector as much as you do. I've been in that sector for at least 30 years. The thing that has changed is the mobile phone. So the fact that the mobile phone is in your hand no matter where you are in this country, and you will be surprised, the smallest of places that you go to. I was in the forest near Ramnagar in a little village called Kyari, and somebody there asked me to go and give a talk to the primary school there. I didn't realize that my audience was going to be kids who were about that high, I think 4 or 5 years old, till the 12th class. But the amazing thing is that every single one of them knew about AI, even if it was just in the context of making Ghibli images of themselves.
Usage is not the issue here. Building is the issue.
Yeah.
Usage is never a problem. All of us use it to, trust me, without it, proposals aren't going out. There's no money coming in. So let's just be clear about usage. That happens very well. But the point becomes about, are we ready to build yet? That's where the issue is. That's where the gap is.
I think I just want to add one thing. I don't know whether it is good or bad, but in our organization, I see many people, they feel more comfortable interacting with AI than with people.
Than with humans.
So they find that the way over the years AI has improved, and the way it now interprets and logically takes you into a particular direction, you feel so much getting sucked into it, because then it is, your wavelength is actually matching. You don't have to train someone, you don't have to find people who can match your wavelength. So I don't know whether it is good or bad, because I think the interactions are going to become less and less. People would more like to talk to, because it can understand and it improves after talking to you. So this is one thing I see. And then we have been, from the open source side of things, I think some of the LLM models like Llama and Mistral, they are really helping us, build a lot of interesting use cases for our customers. Especially the use cases which I see in BFSI is the use cases which are not public facing but which are internal facing. So for example, telling the call center guys the next best action when they're talking to a customer, and how to actually look at that particular interactions and what all suggestions need to be given. So I think these are some of the use cases we are able to enable using open source AI. But I think from a societal point of view, I see a lot of changes coming in because of the AI. I don't know whether it will be good or bad.
Okay, fair enough. I think we are good for questions.
That's my work.
We do the same.
I wanted to ask about the credibility, ensuring the credibility of the services. See, access to software is no longer a problem, especially with FOSS. Now, I put this in context. I work in an academic government-funded institution, and we have to work with, let's say, tendering. Now, in a corporate world, if you take the previous panel, you have to ensure the data security, but you could choose the credibility of the person providing you the service on the basis of various certifications or on the basis of something else. And here you have to choose on the basis of price, because that's the way that our tenders work, right? Now, is there a way to ensure something like certification, the credibility of the services provided, the IT services provided using FOSS? Did you get what I was trying to say?
Yeah. You want to?
Okay, no, very valid point, because that's what we see when we are responding to RFPs and tenders which are coming in. Um, I think if you look at most of the certifications that we have to provide or comply with, I think are coming at a level which are at the infrastructure or from the security point of view. Which is an open source which is never heard of, or the community has not reached to a maturity where it has not got those kind of certifications available. Another point to it is, we also realized when we were working in open source that we were taking too much of risk on ourselves, because we were taking ownership of most of the things as service provider for on behalf of our customers. And we realized that we were not able to scale this business. Because everything we have to do on our own or rely on the community to do it. Now what we started doing is tying up with these open source project providers and entering into a relationship with them and partnering with them and providing them the right input in terms of the compliance and the some of the certification that needs to be done, because it is essential so that they are part of those consideration when a tender or an RFP comes in. So I would say that people are also they are not very gung-ho in terms of that it has to comply to all the standards. They understand that this is something which is being used world over, might not comply to this particular standard, but ultimately it is in that direction where it could get complied to. So we have had situations where on the other side of the table, people have to be very, they should understand that they are talking about open source and they just can't compare it one-to-one with the proprietary.
Can I qualify this? See, the thing is, everyone in this room is aware of open source, and I'm not questioning the credibility of the open source stack or the components. I'm questioning the deployment ability of a service provider. And that is not certified, especially in our country. Now, see, in ours, I have students who can deploy a LAMP stack. I cannot sell that to someone who has to ensure the data security. So that's the question I'm asking. How do you ensure?
Okay, so everyone has to go through their own way and journey to actually reach to that level.